Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Patient First podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin, and I'm excited that you're here. And I'm also excited that we have a great guest with us today, Chad Widensky, who joined Provide in March of 2019 as the company's regional director of practice finance for the Northeast. Leveraging over 14 years of experience in the practice finance industry, Chad has served in various leadership roles at Provide, and in 2022, Chad was elevated to his current role as Chief Revenue Officer. Chad is responsible for overseeing the strategy and processes utilized to drive loan volume and overall revenue growth across multiple teams. Chad, thank you so much for being here. It's pretty rare that we have a banker on the Patient First podcast, but I'm glad that you're here.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate it. I was even more excited that it's rare. So this is be something that people maybe get a little bit different spin than they've gotten in the past. So excited about that.
Yeah, we've had bankers on in the past, but not really talking specifically about what I believe we're going to be talking about today, right? Which is how to leverage your banking situation as a practice to help grow your practice, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, really, really excited about that. I think, a lot of people just think of bankers, because the thing most people do is they get a mortgage first, or really they get a car loan first, and they talk to somebody, or if not, they just really talk to the person in the dealership, and someone gives them a loan, and that's what they expect the banker just does. But really, when you get down to it, getting that loan is that first step, and how the banker, the lender, really helps you along with that process, and then probably just as importantly on the back end, what that bank can do to really help that doctor, really any consumer, with their business afterwards and anything personal is really that's how I think people should really judge their partners they bring in on the lending side.
Great. We'll talk about Provide and kind of what you guys do and how it's different.
Yeah. So Provide is a fintech. It was started in 2013. Really smart engineers create a platform by which you could apply for a loan and that still house the underwriting and all the backups. So really just this really cool technology, for lack of a better way of saying it. The founders then found the dental industry and then the vet industry, really just the healthcare industry in general, and really took a focus on that. And so they built this platform. They brought over a really smart, talented credit person who is now our chief credit officer, and built a policy. Said let's go get some really smart and people who knew the healthcare business. So really took the best of technology and then brought in some good lenders that were out there in the field who had relationships. So took technology and great human beings and brought them together. And so it was really an unbelievable collaboration between engineers, credit folks, people that closed loans, really smart project people that honestly, I think we're the only lender that could say that the guy who runs our project group actually has a degree in construction management from Ohio State. So like literally can add value at levels that we don't think other lenders do, but really at the crux of it, and I've said it before, a financial technology company. So when doctors come to Provide, the first difference that they see is everything is digital. Our application is digital. The way you upload documents is digital. In most cases, you'll never print out a piece of paper and can get loans well in excess of $1 million, which is pretty exciting to be able to do that without having to actually print something, scan it. I know no one faxes anymore, so it's really just scanning. But really, it was the opportunity when I joined them. I was the 30th employee. We have over 200 employees now. We've really grown to a point, second largest lender in the space, help dentists, primarily dentists, veterinarians, and other healthcare professionals do anything they need in their practice. Again, acquisitions, projects, real estate, refinances, expansions, and then all the banking products that you would expect from a good banking partner.
So I have a story that I want to share from when I acquired a practice that I think made it into one of my books. I think it was the last one, and this was one of the largest banks out there that
Mhm.
probably top 20 bank in the world, right? That has a large dental presence, and I closed on this practice at the very last day of the year, December 31st, right?
Mhm.
And because that's when the dentist wanted to for whatever reason wanted to close on that date so we could finish off the year, and then we merged our practices together, and I had bought a building and and moved our both of that we're moving both our practices into, and On we closed it, everything, moved everything over. We're all ready to go. And the next day after we closed, and again, we closed on December 31st, which means that this was New Year's Day, right?
Mhm.
A holiday.
No
I
banks
got a
are
call
open.
when what's that? When no banks are open?
Yeah, so when banks are typically closed on the first.
Yes. However, I received a call from this bank and they said, "Hey, I realized we were missing a document. That document is all the physical assets that was owned by this practice." And my response was, "Well, we just closed this, so you can't unbake this cake, right?" And they said, "Well, I need to have a list of all the physical things in the practice down to like," I said, "What do you need?" Like, and they said, "Well, everything from the chairs, the instruments, the x-ray heads. I just need a list of everything in the practice." And I said, "Well, that would have been possible a month ago. It would have made sense 6 months ago.
Yep.
But the day after on New Year's Day, after we've already closed, this makes no sense. Right."
No.
And they said, "I just need a list." And I said, "How about this? How about I take out a piece of blank paper and a crayon and I write down things from my brain that I think the practice may have had? And will that be okay?" And they said, "Just give me whatever you want." And I said, "So if I wrote down that there's a unicorn that came with this practice, will you then ask me what color the unicorn was? Or will the list, because you have no way of turning this loan around, will the whatever list I give you is going to be okay? So I'm going to take 2 minutes out of my life and send you just a load of crap that I'm going to scribble on and from my memory of just things that I know that this practice has." And he just said, "Just send me wherever you can." So I did that. I took out a piece of paper and a crayon. I wrote something like 3 dental chairs or, whatever, just
Mhm.
stuff, probably a total of 12 items, and faxed it over. And I never heard from them again.
Yep.
So my point is that there's a huge gap in the industry
Yep.
for knowledgeable people to
Oh,
to to give loans. And you
yeah.
probably hear stories like that all of the time.
So one, I have to ask, was one of the 12 items the unicorn? Because I
No, I
hope
couldn't
you
do it
wrote that down there. Oh,
because it didn't actually come with unicorn, right? Then they could come
that's
back and say
fair.
there
That's
was no
fair.
unicorn, right?
They would
Yeah,
have
no,
actually
I
questioned that one. They would have been like, listen, could you take a picture of the unicorn and send that to us? We're
yep.
fine with the dental chance, but we'd like to see. So yes, I've heard many a story, and in fairness, and probably in my career, there's been incidents where we missed signature or missed something. Typically we're not calling that person on the first. Someone's doing their diligence to just make sure, but most of that happens on the front end, and that's where you talk about the talented people and the things that I think differentiate us from some of the other lenders that are out there. And the one of the things that I will tell you is that when we developed our teams, and we have people in the field again that work hand in hand with doctors that talk about opportunities, know different people, have relationships in the market. We have partners on we refer to as like an inside salesperson who helps get all the information together, communicate to the doctor. But one of the best things that we have, and one of the things that differentiates us, is our closers. So those are the people that missed that piece of paper. Those are the
Yep.
ones that allowed the deal to happen. And so many times, those people on the back end are good people. They could be very talented people, but they are literally sending out emails. They're sending out emails. They're just pushing paper. We have some of the best human beings, but also the most talented people that when you close a loan with us, we pick up the phone. And the reason that we made that a big part of what we do and we talk about it and we pitch that is because a lot of doctors had that experience. A lot of us who came from other lenders had experiences like that, where you just drop a small ball, but it's a small piece of it, but it's still bothersome. It's bothersome to you. It's bothersome to me. It's bothersome to all the people that you probably said, "Hey, listen to what happened to me." And now all these doctors are talking about that lender dropping a ball in the 25th hour, as opposed to where you really hope, and this is not specific to Provide, obviously, this is any institution that tries to have really talented people throughout their process. It's that person on the back end is you're talking to me. If I'm the person that you met, you lived in New York City, and we said, "Hey, let's start a practice." I helped you get everything lined up, introduce you to your resources, but that closer is with you for the point that you actually tell a bank you want money to closing is could be 2 to 3 months. If you're doing a project, it could be a year. So that person, you want them to be really helping you and not calling you the day after and saying, hey, you missed a piece of paper. And if you don't do it, I'm going to figure out a way maybe to get the money back, which clearly you can't do that. So
Yeah.
it really is those people that pick up the phone, help you out, want to give you a hand, give you advice, and help you get to that point of getting the money without that hassle.
Well, and we talk all the time on this podcast about the value of like having paperless forms and efficiencies that elevate the patient experience, right? Patients expect coming to your practice. Now, if you slip over I just went to a medical practice and they gave me a physical piece of paper to sign. And I was like, I literally felt like I was going back 50 years in the past, post pandemic just does not make sense. And that really hits the banking industry hard. When I bought that practice, I also bought a building, like I kind of alluded to, and so I
Yeah,
bought a building, did a whole build out, and then bought another practice and merged everything together. And I did this right after the 2008 crisis because I felt like you know nobody else was doing anything, so that kind of seemed like a
yeah,
good time. Turned out I was right, but at the time it was very scary, right? Uh,
sure.
but but I decided there's a lot of transactions going on. So what did I decide to do? I decided to digitize everything in my life, right? To just I signed up for the Google Cloud services. I put
Yeah,
everything in Google Drive, and that way that I knew when one of the inevitable 50 people I was working with wanted a document, I could
yeah.
easily send it over, right? And you're kind of making that easy for people, correct?
Oh, so it's so much so that so 2 years ago, when I joined the company, and it was a smaller company based in San Francisco, we were really growing. 2 years ago, we got acquired by Fifth Third Bank. So Fifth Third Bank Provide is a wholly owned subsidiary of Fifth Third with a somewhere between 10th and 20th, depending on, different factors, size bank in the country. And I would tell you that as we have shown how much we can do things digitally and how there's no reason for people to print out that piece of paper anymore, which is amazing. You're still getting in the medical office. Fifth Third has started to adopt more of those things. And part of that has been, I mentioned before, like the loan is obviously one piece of what any lender will do and helping you get closed and doing it efficiently and not asking you for a piece of paper the day after is really the banking piece of it. And that being able to get digitized. And the idea that you have a check scanner. Who wants to stand in line at the bank anymore and deposit checks? And the idea that you have a really slick credit card that has rewards that are meant for a dentist. So you 1% on everything, and then 3% in supply and lab, and that integrates with the the dashboard that you have with your bank account, and then your merchant. Like all of those things should be so digitally connected, so that the doctor doesn't even have to think about it, and what they do, they should focus on putting patients in the chair. They should focus on their staff. They shouldn't have to think about that stack of paper that we have all seen in a doctor's office when we go into it and you're like, oh my God, do you actually know what's in there? Probably not. If you digitized it, you wouldn't have to think about it.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation on this podcast recently, and somebody was talking about how the printer is part of the technology in the practice, and I was like, "Why do we even need a printer?" I mean, actually, I work with a company that actually puts printers in like apartment buildings because people don't even have printers anymore, so they need to have one for the entire building, so that right, and that's kind of
Uh,
where the world is. So right,
I'm laughing because I've been doing this 14 years. I did other stuff before that, Brian, and I have a printer. If I didn't have my cool background that my marketing team would be so excited that I know how to use, you would see my printer behind me. I would tell you, I think out of the 200 plus people outside of our offices, physical offices, which we have a couple of them, people don't have printers. They just don't have them. If you need to print something, you go to a print center or you go to a FedEx Kinko's or you go to Staples. That's what people do these days. They just don't even think about. I mean, the idea of like talking about a fax. I mean, you said before I faxed all my information and to get that deal done in 2000, that was made sense in 2008. But no one
yep,
does that anymore. It just doesn't happen.
yep, yeah, and I mean, I think completely, and If you think about how often, if you have a dental practice, how often your printer gets used versus how often you use your printer at home, right?
Yeah,
And yet a lot of dental practices are saying we've got our forms on our website, right? Yeah, as a PDF that you expect somebody to download and print, you know, does that's not cutting it, right? And
no,
and the same thing is true when you're working with your bank. I appreciate that. So I think, that and I went directly back to the technology when you're talking about the people, because I think that technology people, I hope, like the technology that we're building, that you're building, I feel like when done right, technology should allow people to do what they are meant to do, which is talk to other people, right?
yeah,
And if you have your team members screwing around with paper and, like you're saying, right, they're not able to meet that patient that
no,
comes in your door or
no,
answer that phone call that rings, right? And that's where the rubber really meets the road. And I think that it gets looked over too much, that these small inefficiencies when it
yeah.
comes to paper, we just deal with them. And but it ends up being a
It's
massive
huge.
unseen loss, right?
It's huge. I mean, even to the simplest part of like one of the things that I loved about the company when I came over, 4+ years ago was that they were doing things in a digital way and everything was digital and there's no paper you had to print out. But the thing was is that when you did an application, it looked really good on the website, right? You opened up your MacBook and you went in there and you typed, it was great, but it wasn't mobile optimized. And then we mobile optimized it and we cut out questions that we really didn't need for a pre-qualification. And so now, to that point, like doctors could actually pre-qualify. It takes 2 minutes to go through the whole thing. But even if you don't have those 2 minutes right away, do it. See the patient, talk to the patient, do your job, whether you're an associate or you're an owner, be present, and then come back to the
Mhm.
application and finish it. And if there's other things, other communicate, like everybody lives on this, right? This is what everybody's doing anyway. Is they're all on their phones all the time. So if you could figure out a way to take that out of the equation, take the even going to your laptop, you don't have to do that. It's right there. It's easy for you. So you don't have to think about other things. Rather, you can think about other things, and you can help think of your patient. Think of ways you can improve your practice. Think of ways that you can improve how your staff interacts with one another or interacts with patients, and doing all those things that really are fun, that are not printing out paper and dealing with paper and having to find the paper and send the paper, and it shouldn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I think we're both solving the same problems in similar industries, or adjacent industries, where I feel like the way to look at the dental practice, I think, and what patients expect is not what other dentists are doing. But if you were an alien from outer space that came down and experienced all different businesses in today, and then you said, okay, this is what a dentist does, or this is what a banker does, how would you expect them to conduct business? And it's very different than how it goes, because you're being compared to Target, who has their own app and does things, Amazon, Starbucks, right? And that's the
Right.
way the world works today. And picking up a phone or sending like a piece of paper is not how the world works outside of your industry of
Yeah.
banking and my industry of dentistry. And so having the way these two connect, I I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, it's something that we should never lose, right? The technology should make our lives easier, but we should never lose that personal side of it. We actually, our mission statement used to have the word technology first and then people, and we changed it to people and then technology, because again, it was built. The technology did come first, but it really, as you said, it's like that just allows you to be better people and interact more genuinely, and not have to think about the other nonsense that has frankly just taken up time that we no longer have to dedicate that time to the minutia and the paperwork that we used to earlier in our careers, and things like you're doing, Brian, and things we're doing, just make it easier for people to focus on the really important stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, so if people are listening and they want to learn more about Provide and leverage your services, how can they get a hold of you?
Easiest way to learn more about the company is to go to our website, www.getprovide.com. If you have a specific question, I'm happy to answer that question. If I can't answer it, I will refer you to a person within the company that can. My email is very easy. It's Chad, CHAD, at getprovide.com. And Bryan. It's been awesome speaking with you. Awesome conversation. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much. So go to getprovide.com. Appreciate your time, Chad, and take care.
Thanks so much, Bryan.